morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Thursday the 8th of January 2026. Very happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone had a good Christmas and New Year break. And also wanted to take this opportunity of thanking everyone who came along to our SEND deep dive in December, which I think was a really informative and very productive session to understand some of the complexities and some of the work which the team are doing, our unsung heroes. I don't know if Audrey, you wanted to add anything to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to say thank you to everybody who came along. Obviously, we had wider member invitation as well, but particularly our Parent Carer Forum and the voices of parents around Northumberland, so Northumberland Autistic Society Committee were here as well. And of course our young people who joined us from Skills thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity, not just to hear what you asked questions about, but their opportunity to say things and contribute are really well valued. And I think, Chair, I'd like to ask the committee members to think about what next. You know, would you like to take that a step further and do some more, you know, maybe not to answer now, but to think about what would you like to do next? Would you like more opportunity to work with our parents, carers and young people and listen to their voices? That would be a really valuable opportunity for us to link in with our SEND strategy and the work that we're doing so that we can understand that. And maybe an opportunity for further deep dive work across the year. But you may have other topics, having heard some of the work that we talked about. So I'll leave that with committee members to think about and liaise with Rebecca and Chair. And we can pick that up at another session, but just something to think about today. But a huge thank you to everybody for not just coming along, but being really active, hugely valued by our everybody's important, but the really important voices of our parents, carers and young people.
And so again, if you have any ideas for a deep dive, contact myself or Rebecca and we'll add those into the mix. But I think that suggestion of the parent carers and working with our young people is a really good one. Right, so let's move on to the substantive agenda for this morning. Can I just take any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. The only apologies I've received are from Mr. Bird.
Thank you. And if I can take the accuracy of the minutes, which are contained within your agenda pack, pages 9 to 12. Any issues with the accuracy in those minutes? And I'm not seeing anything, so I'll sign those off as an accurate record. The standing item on all agendas is disclosures of members' interests. We all have our declarations of interests published online, and I'm not seeing anyone has got a particular interest that they need to declare for this morning's meeting. So if we move on to item number 4, which is the Northumberland Skills Self-Assessment Report for 2024 and 2025. That's pages 13 to 38 in your report. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Audrey Kingham, our Executive Director, first to introduce the report, and then I'll be bringing Mick in to run through the report, which I'm sure you've all read in detail ahead of today's meeting. So Audrey, if I can ask you to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Our annual report, you will recall, those of you who were members last year, that the same Thursday last year we were giving this report. And actually, you will also recall we talked about we were due Ofsted at any point. We were overdue the Ofsted inspection and in fact got the phone call the next day. So one thing I think we can be pretty confident of, we won't get an Ofsted call tomorrow for the skills, because it'll be another probably 2 to 3 years at least before we have that. So this is our post-16 service and also our adult learning. So you will hear the highlights from Mick. We also have an extensive employability offer within this service area. So it isn't just about our young people, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It's also about the transformation that we have the opportunity to do for our adults, whether they are wishing to do career changes, whether they wish to enter the employment market again, then this service is really strongly placed to be able to support that re-entry into employment. And Mick will talk you through some of the successors. You will clearly have read that in detail in the report, and you will see the impact of the work that the team does. So I'll hand over to Nick.
Assessment report. Sorry, thanks for that. Not moving. Ah. There. Sorry. Thank you. The first slide, really, I just wanted to try and highlight essentially what Northumberland Skills is all about, and some of the bullet points on there pretty much captures what we are. Audrey's already outlined. We are the post-16 adult and apprenticeship service for Northumberland County Council. We call ourselves Northumberland Skills as a brand name, but we are essentially the County Council. We operate on a values-based educational model, and our primary concern is filling the gaps where other providers may not support some of our residents, both young people and adults. We continue on a transformational journey as a skills service. If I think back to where we began more vigorously from COVID, we've moved a considerable distance travelled since them times. We obviously have a huge focus on achievement, destination and progression for all of our residents that we engage with. As Audrey outlined before, we are an Ofsted inspected service, publicly funded. The way our self-assessment report, which as you've outlined is in your pack already, it's laid out in the way Ofsted actually inspect us from the perspective of provision types, which you'll see on each page. There's a provision type: educational programs for young people, adult learning programs, apprenticeships and high needs, and then the key judgments across the service of the quality of education, behaviour and attitudes, personal development, leadership and management. And we've self-assessed ourselves and graded ourselves for 24-25 as to where we think we are operating at. And that's not too far away from Ofsted's findings back in January last year. We are also, from an information, advice and guidance, we are also Matrix accredited. That's a national recognition for being able to provide comprehensive, accurate information, advice and guidance for both young people and adults as well. And that's something that's reviewed annually and externally assessed. A bit of a mini Ofsted, actually, when you look at it. Our recruitment continues to increase from a learner numbers perspective year on year. Our delivery locations on this slide now represent where we are currently operating across the county. Obviously there is probably slightly more focus around the southeast of Northumberland from the Port of Blythe perspective, but there is a lot going on there, actually, a lot of valuable opportunities for both young people and adults, certainly in that southeast perspective, although we have a footprint as far as Berwick and as far as west as Hexham, as you can see from the locations. Just to try and pick out some of the highlights that was in the overall self-assessment report of learner numbers. This is around recruitment of learners and growth. The first one is a 16 to 18-year-old trend graph there, which year on year has shown quite a, given the size of our service, quite a reasonable distance travelled each year. There's another 40, is it 40? 45 for this year based on last year, an additional 45 young people. And certainly from an adult perspective, our learner numbers are very stable. We have an adult education allocation from the North East Combined Authority We are fulfilling that allocation now year on year, hence the numbers are quite stable there. From a SEND perspective, because high needs and SEND is one of our primary focuses as a service, we have a main SEND offer which operates currently out of Alnwick, out of Lindisfarne and Alnwick. We also have significant plans in place for September 26, I was nearly said September 25, September 26, for to have a send off and open it up in Berwick as well, to try and support some of the needs for send across the county and further north into some of the areas where travel and the geography of the county makes it probably quite challenging sometimes for young people. Our send numbers relatively levelled off year on year there, but based on the predictions of young people with send coming through the system, there we are expecting a growth for 26-27, hence the considerations for opening an offer in Berwick and potentially in Blythe as well, if the demand is there. Some of the key performance outcomes that we use to measure ourselves across Northumberland Skills I've highlighted on there, mainly achievement rates, the retention, pass rate, achievement, and national rate comparators actually, because we still have to benchmark ourselves against a national framework of achievement. Attendance, progress on any course, whether it's young people or adults, and progression in destinations. For us, and I think any provider, it's about a journey. It's about starting at the beginning and progression through that journey to a destination at the end of that, a positive destination as well. Some of our overall achievement I've represented in a graph, or a pictorial type graph there for 16, 18, 19 plus and all ages there. We're well into the 90% area, which actually in an old Ofsted judgment world, that would have been outstanding. That sort of data is actually outstanding. We believe that some of our areas, as highlighted in the self-assessment report, we have self-assessed as outstanding, but overall that data is really supports, I think essentially what we are doing is the right thing and we are getting the outcomes that we expect to get. We are 6.1% above the national rate for all ages for achievement. Our SEND, just highlighting our SEND achievement, 91.8% of achievement is extremely high performing as well, and that being some 8.1% above the national rate when we're comparing ourselves with other providers. From an apprenticeship perspective, we are experiencing and seeing achievement on an increasing trend. We're 16.9% above any DFE intervention, and while 76.9% of achievement possibly doesn't seem anywhere near the 90% celebrations that we were looking at before, the achievement for apprenticeships nationally across England has seen a massive decline, and we are, I would like to think, bucking the trend a little bit for that, and hence any DFE intervention is 60%. 60% is nowhere near a good enough achievement level for us. We would like that to be up alongside the same levels as what our young people and adults adult achievement is. But we are increasing that trend at 76.9 and happy with that and predicting that will continue in that same trajectory for this coming year. Our destinations, as well as a little slide on our destinations there, and some of the outcomes from our survey. We survey our learners, all learners, adults and young people, and some of the percentages are on there. Around 92% would recommend Northumberland skills to others, 93% feel they are treated as individuals and supported to reach their potential, and 97% feel like the course is helping them to develop their skills. Bearing in mind, some of our audience, not all, but some of our audience, both young people and adults, are possibly the farthest away from the labour market and also the farthest away from other forms of post-16 education as well. So I think we are more than happy with what we are doing. Our learners are feeding back to us and confirming what we are doing is the right thing with the outcomes that they expect, not just what we expect. I've just included a couple of case studies. These are lifted just from the self-assessment report, so they're within that report for you to look at them in more detail. This is one of our SEND learners, and you can see there what we are achieving with our SEND learners and giving them some experiences and values that hopefully will allow them to progress and move forward. I'll just let you read some of that there. And another one, this is an adult one, this is actually Stellix, I think it is Stellix at Hatson, which make stainless steel catering furniture, actually is what they make. And we've run a number of programs for our adults in connection with the DWP, where the DWP, I'm not sure if mandate's the right word, but mandates some adults to a program with us. This is actually at Blythe Weldon, where they will join a program with us for 6 weeks, and during that period of time, an employer or more than one employer will spend some time with the learners, and there are some jobs at the end of them for them learners. And there are a couple of examples of 2 learners who successfully gained some employment with Stellix on this occasion at the end of what was only a 6-week course actually in Weldon, but it allowed the employer to see them performing in a workplace, and also based on the feedback we were able to give them about behaviours and attitudes. And that's pretty much the highlight of my presentation there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. And I think what you've done is pretty much summarise that quite detailed report that we've got in front of us. Audrey, I was just wondering if there's anything that you want to kind of present as a summary before I open this up to questions from members?
Thank you, Chair. So couple of things to highlight. So possibly the committee is more familiar with the school inspection framework and the change from an overall grade into multiple subgrades, if you like, that were always there, but then they were summarized up. Actually, Northumberland Skills is also now part of that, although they have, their last report does have a high level grade. So when you read through the report, you will see that the team have self-assessed in a number of areas as outstanding. So I think that's really important to understand, and that's progress moving on from previous years. Mick highlighted outcomes actually in the performance. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the significantly better performance than our peers nationally for our residents in Northumberland. So where we are better than the national, we are doing better than other areas in the country for our young people and our adults. You'll come on later in the agenda where Tara will be talking about our This is a service and skills that has transformed to work with some of our most vulnerable residents, whether they are young people or adults, and therefore focus very much on that prevention of a continued not in education and employment or training, and therefore that focus on knowledge, skills and behaviours and movement into a positive destination or outcome, as Mick highlighted. He gave some really good case studies there. The second thing I'd want to highlight is that preparation of young people for work. So you will have seen that knowledge, skills and behaviour framework within the self-assessment report, and that is very much, and was part of the Ofsted report last year and reviewed, how we work with young people to make sure that they are ready to go into a job at the end of this. They have gained and travelled a journey to understand the behaviours that are expected of employers, so they go in work ready, and that is significant for our young people. I think, Chair, the third thing I'd like to say is, and Mick highlighted there, but the reputation of this service with employers has significantly grown. So employers are brought in every month as part of some of the programme, the end of each of the module training, and our young people are exposed to their expectations and behaviours for employment. So they're exposed to vacancies. You will see job vacancies in many of our sites that the team have highlighted earlier. And the number of young people who secure employment with the employers that we work with and engage with before they leave their course is higher than you would normally expect to see. So that whole model is wrapped up around support. It's got challenge there because it's asking our young people to adapt and change and develop and grow their behaviour to mature and be ready to become employed. And then actually to secure a job as a result of it makes a significant difference, not just to them, but potentially to that whole household that they're a part of. So three big things from me there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up to questions, and I know Georgina Hill's already indicated she wants to speak. Is there anyone else? Okay. Right, so Georgina first.
Thank you. Looking first of all at the strategic aims, which includes enabling all learners to achieve their full potential and reducing travel to learn barriers, there is an issue in Berwick. More and more post-16 are going to Newcastle College because of the wide offering there and because they do T-levels. And if you remember, Wayne, I don't know if you remember, I think we're talking about 2018 to 2019. I remember speaking to you and Dean about the circumstances of the distance that people travel in Berwick, and actually getting to Newcastle, you know, down on the train was the same sort of cost and certainly an easier travel and in many ways a better option to get to Newcastle. So remember there was a discretionary support for the rail fares for that. What's happened, I mean, that was obviously, I think it was 2019, you know, so over 5 years ago. That hasn't gone up. The support and train fares have gone up. So I've had a spike of parents saying, I'm really worried, and I think, you know, it's £100 or £150 a month. There's some circumstances saying, I'm really worried about being able to afford now because we haven't increased that. And it's really worrying when you've got parents are seeing the children something very vocational, getting the work experience, and really enjoying being in Newcastle, but they're just saying this is becoming unaffordable. And then you're seeing quite clearly the risk here of people's life chances, and a really good, let's look at the route, what Northumberland Skills and what we're all saying and what we're looking to support could be affected by the fact that this hasn't increased with inflation or matching train fare rises. So it's more of a sort of policy area, but can I just ask that's looked at, because that's creating a barrier for learning.
Thank you. So you're right, it is a home to school transport policy. It's not linked with Northumberland Skills, so they are very different curriculum offers. We'll take that question away, and Sue and I will pick that up with home to school transport.
Thank you. So Councillor Matheson, please.
Thank you. just one set of statistics that I'd like to pick up on, if that's all right, Mick, and that was the English and maths statistics, which, I mean, yeah, if we look at them, because I mean it is of course very very important. If we look at them, I mean they peaked, didn't they, very very much previous year, and I just wondered if this was just a sort of flattening off now in this last year, because they have in all areas since 16 to 18, 19 plus, and all they just gone back down, but still better than you know than 2 years ago. But I just wondered if there's an explanation for that very in the second year very very big rise.
Yes, there is an explanation for
Yeah.
that. Certainly, in the year that it peaked,
Yeah.
as you've outlined there, the learner numbers was much fewer.
Okay.
So there was, you know, I'm not saying an opportunity, but the outcome for them few learner numbers actually influenced a much higher percentage of achievement compared to the year previous gone, which you see a fall because of our overall growth, mainly in 16-18, which is what drives and supports some of that data. We've seen another pretty big increase in young people that needed to. It's not just about young people being 16-18. It's about young people that needed to achieve a grade 4 in English and maths, whether it be a functional skill or a GCSE.
So that would also be then the opportunities. It was more the ratio.
Yes.
The ratio, yeah, learner to
Yes.
teacher. Yeah, helped the previous year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Susan Fellis-Aiken.
Thank you. And thank you, Mick. I always look forward to this one. I don't know why you have a manner of presenting that I find very warm and kind of anyway. I love that last time. I think my idea was for more progressions and destinations, and they were on there this time because I talked about an alumni, which I think is incredibly important to inspiring people to going into it and increasing your numbers. And I think well done for surviving the Ofsted, because I think outstanding is overrated in my opinion. And I just wanted to know, have you approached people like EGA at all in Hexham, because they kind of work very closely with community and training people locally? I wonder if that's one of your employees that you've worked with.
We do have a relationship with EGA. From a previous life, I actually have a relationship with the training manager from EGA. EGA currently, I believe, is supported by another training provider at the moment, but we are always looking for opportunities where we can enhance and support them opportunities for both young people and adults across all areas of the county, actually, not just in the west.
Any other Councillor Jones? We'll pass the microphone back to you so everyone can hear your question.
No, it's that one. Yeah. Your send-offer is at Alnwick, but the county is a massive county, and obviously that's not going to be suitable for areas on the edges of the county. What relationships do you have, and what's your progression?
Well, our initial, as I outlined in my little presentation, our next step is to expand to Berwick. We already have a send offer, albeit nowhere near the size of Alnwick, in Prudhoe, currently out of the Fuse in conjunction Collingwood School as well. The same footprint there.
Do you have any plans? Sorry, have any plans to like, you've got a base at Hexham? Is there any plans to do an offer there?
We currently don't, but it's a demand-led offer. So we will work in conjunction with the data that's coming through the system from schools to see where the young people that's already been identified with SEND, where they are geographically located, and will hopefully be able to react to support some of the outreach and outlying areas of the county.
It's a massive county. You've got a mega job there. Thank you.
I'm just going to bring Sue Avison in. I think you wanted to make
Councillor Jones, we've obviously got a wider strategy around capacity growth for meeting special educational needs as close to home as possible. We're currently working with the 3 partnerships in the west of the county to develop the SEND offer, and mixed service will be part of that development as we actually move forward to ensure that, you know, post 16 is included in those plans that we develop across the, you know, the Tyne Valley really, rather than it just being on school specific partnerships. So we had a few meetings, we've got some ideas, we've got working groups set up, we've got a board set up, so hopefully you'll see some, and I think I'm back here in March to talk more about the strategy, so I'll be able to give you a little bit more of an update next time that I'm here as well, so it will all join up. Yeah, okay.
Good question. So I'm going to open the floor to Councillor Green as well.
Thank you. I'd just like to know, do we offer a similar provision for care leavers? And if so, is it a separate department or do they come under your scope?
I think everybody comes under my scope, actually. We don't make any discrimination between our young people and what their background is.
So care leavers do go on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Answer your question? Good. Any other questions? Right, so I'll use my opportunity then. So, one of the things that we need to do in scrutiny, and you've got this in this report and other reports, we get data. And we should use that data to interrogate where something's good, what do we learn from, where something's not so good, what can we do better. So I'm not seeing anything which is alarming me in this report, which is really good. So as a scrutiny function, I think we've done our job this morning about asking, particularly about where we're going to progress send offer to. But what I'm interested in, Mick, particularly is we've got this report, we're bucking the trend, we're better than most of the rest of the country. So on that journey of continuous improvement, what's next?
I think as a service, continuing the growth and opportunities for our young people and adults across all funding streams. Audrey mentioned earlier in her introduction about the opportunities with employability and our employability ability across the whole of the county, and we do have an employability offer that is much wider. We have an employability offer as far as Berwick and out in the west as well. I think from a sector perspective, we are constantly looking to see where we can fill in support gaps where some provision may not be as easily available from other providers across the county. I think we are currently looking for future plans, not just in support and expanding the current offer that we have at the moment, but we are looking at the whole childcare world and what that could mean to us and where could we fit within that across the county. It will always be determined by need and demand, I think, but we feel if we are looking forward as a service, we feel that there's potentially an area of exploration that we need to look at, as well as continuing to grow our existing areas.
And if I could just pick up on one other thing as well, because in the report, when everyone thinks of the skills service, I think about young people, apprenticeships, but actually there's a couple of pages in the report which do go into detail about how we're supporting adults, that it's never too late to learn kind of ethos. So I'm just wondering, in terms of an older person who is either thinking of retraining or wants to join the labour market, or some reason they've been out of work for some time, what is it that we can do to support that, and where do the referrals come from? Is it somebody just picks up the phone, rings and says, I want to get involved, or is it with partners like Department of Work and Pensions, job centres? How does that work?
It is. Obviously, it's a multifaceted approach from a service perspective. There are we do have a website and a prospectus, so there are the cold call type applications that from an adult perspective, but because our service is not just skills, it is employability as well. And through our employability activities, we have a direct link of referring. The employability offer is predominantly a referral from DWP, but then the employability activity that takes place signposts and refers them residents that's been engaged in that towards us as a provider and other providers if it's appropriate for whatever they would like to progress into. So that works really well and joined up together, hopefully providing the opportunities that residents want.
Thank you for that. Audrey, you wanted to come in, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just to probably round this off, but in terms of strategic direction, it is really important that we have the whole of the NCC portfolio understand the value of Northumberland Skills, the training, the funding that they receive. There is more than £1 million worth of growth as a result of the work that this team have done over the last 2 years. That is not insignificant, and that is, Mick talks about learner numbers. So individual students mean more funding in terms of coming into that service, which means that the team has expanded and the expertise is broader to be able to support the outcomes. And you are seeing through the report the outputs and the outcomes that are being achieved as a result of that. It can't exist in isolation, so it's really important. And without prompt, Sue talks about our place planning strategy, if I can say it, and the whole of the county. Mick gave you a long list of the current venues, our expansion into Berwick, thinking about our send offer for 26-27 academic year. That's really important. That's foresight, that's planning ahead. But not all areas join up currently and understand the value of this. So there is a big piece of work ongoing, and we will continue to bang the drum about that. It won't surprise you to know that a 14 to 16 offer is also on the radar, and that is something that we can see the success for our 16 plus and our adult learners. We know within the broader children's services that for our young people, the model of Monday to Friday, 9 to 4 o'clock necessarily, does not fit every child, and our exclusion rate and challenges around attendance, we need to think alternatively. And we are already doing that with our alternative provision, but skills will start to feature in that. We'll start to think about what that model could look like. It's successful 16 up over. We now need to explore that coming back into the compulsory system and think about what does that mean, what could that mean for our young people. If we can engage them earlier, then we've got a better chance of them sticking into a career longer term, and that's where we'll start to see some seismic change in the economy and potentially in our households that dip into the poverty levels at time to time. So lots of work connected into our best start in life work, our family hub work, our poverty work, send work, schools, skills, and our employer forums. So all of that has to connect and knit together. Thank you.
And I think that's a really good summary, Audrey. Susan, I'll bring you in very quickly because
it's just a point to follow up. It would be good to, I like the idea of the 14 to 16 offer and getting it in. It would be good to actually get into the schools themselves. And I'm kind of thinking the one school that we do have, the high school that we do have good links with, is Hayden Bridge. And I'm just kind of thinking to utilise that building, that model, and kind of, you know, pushing a bit further out west maybe, but tying in with the schools offering there, because that is...
So we do work with all of the schools. You know, Mick has a school liaison and a team who work directly. So we have to remember that this is a commercial competitive service, and schools would like their own sixth forms. So they clearly want to retain pupils to stay in the sixth forms to make that viable. Mick also has to think about his provision being viable. So it would be wonderful to offer welding in Reedsdale as an example, but we can't offer that for one person in one locality, and it is about being demand led and ensuring that we're able to do that cohesively. So it's sensible conversations that we have, I hope, on many occasions, and being respectful of young people making the right choices, making sure they're going in the right direction. Our role is not to cajole anybody to make a course viable. It is absolutely to ensure that the student is on the right course to achieve really well and go to a really good destination. So we're mindful of the competitive nature of the landscape, and everybody's part in the broader jigsaw, I think, is how I would describe it.
Good. Thank you very much, Audrey. So we've been asked to note the report, which we've done. Mick, we'll look forward to seeing you again in the future. So well done, and please pass on our thanks as well to everyone involved in Northumberland Skills for pulling that together. We're now moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the Virtual School Head Teacher Annual Report. It's pages 39 to 68 in your pack. It's going to be presented by Tara Prescott, but Vicky, I'm going to ask you if you can please just introduce the report, and then which obviously everyone's read. So we will then take some questions after you've gone through the two presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just want to really briefly introduce the report and to highlight that Tara is here today with us. Everybody will remember Jane Walker. She's been in a variety of different forums, was our virtual school head. She did retire at the end of December, so has sadly left us. And it was really for myself to ask Tara if she would be able to step up into the virtual head school role, and she did agree, which we were very pleased about, because she's got absolutely the experience and ability to do that. So I just really wanted to remind everybody about why the virtual school came about. So this is for our cared for children and our care leavers, and it is very much focused on their attainment and their levels of achievement within education. The virtual school has many other elements to it now, but when it first came about, that was absolutely the key focus of the virtual school, was on our cared for children. So it absolutely links into your role as corporate parents for our children and young people who are in our care and who are our care leavers as well. I do just very briefly want to draw your attention to the poem that is on page 3 of the report, page 45 of your pack, I believe, which was written by one of our young people. I'm not going to read it out. Every time I do read it, I do get a bit of a lump in my throat and feel really quite emotional, so I probably wouldn't get through it. But I do encourage you to read that, because it was written by one of our young people. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Tara. She will provide the highlights of the report, so what's went well over the course of the last year, what do we want to focus on, and what's our actions for the coming year as well. Thank you.
Morning everybody, it's lovely to be here today. I hope you've enjoyed reading the Virtual School Annual Report for last year as well. As Vicky said, I am just going to go through some of the highlights of it. So starting with some of our successes for last year, I think the report does show that the longer a child is in care, the better their educational achievement and progress is from the starting point. We do have more children working in their age-related curriculum. Primary education is a strength, and we've got a high proportion of children making academic progress, having good attendance, and we've got low numbers of suspensions. We've got more Year 4 children achieving a good score in their multiplication test this year. We have more children achieving grade 4 and above in English and Maths GCSEs at the basics, and that has been for the last 3 years. And we've got a very high proportion of Year 11 leavers with a planned destination for September in education, training and employment. We have an increasing number of schools that are using trauma-informed practice and adopting that practice within schools, which again has improved our overall attendance, lowering the absence, severe absence, and we've got fewer suspensions. Some of the challenges that we've had, we do have a very high number of school-age cared for children, which is increasing. So we have a number of children presenting with complex educational needs, including special needs, educational needs. We've got an increasing number of children at risk of permanent exclusion and who were permanently excluded prior to entering care. The academic progress from entry to care for our Year 10 and 11 Key Stage 4 children isn't as rapid enough as we would like that to be. And we still have gaps in achievement for non-cared for children, compared to non-cared for children, that are still too wide. So for us as a virtual school, our next steps and where we are hoping to go this year is we are going to have a huge emphasis still on the relational approach within schools, and we are still developing that within all of our schools and social care to support our young people. We have been doing a lot of work with our residential homes in NCC, with our educational psychologists, and we are doing some training with the residential homes in Northumberland around education support for our most vulnerable group of young people. The virtual school underwent a redesign for September, so this has now been implemented since September, but as Vicky said, now we've had a slight change again with Jane retiring, so we are on our journey with one new structure within the virtual school and the school safeguarding team. One of our key focuses is going to be around the personal education plans. We are redesigning our personal education plans to have a stronger emphasis on the targets and outcomes for young people, and we are in the process of doing that now. And we are reviewing the impact of Pupil Premium Plus in more depth. And again, that is in personal education plans, but this also drives the improvements through and outcomes for our young people. We are developing the offer for children in kinship care, and we have our first event in March, and this is for children in kinship care arrangements with a focus on education and education support for this group of young people. We are going to be developing a suspension toolkit, and again, this is another strategy just to reduce suspensions for cared for children and or children with a social worker within our schools, and our plan is to align the pathway plans for cared for children and care leavers with the personal education plans.
So, thank you very much for that. What I want to do, if I can, is open up to questions from committee members. So, Councillor Green, please.
Mine's not a question. I'd just like to welcome Tara to the role and thank you for stepping up and keeping continuity in the team.
Do we have any other questions from members? Susan. Could I ask you please to put your
I'm
mic
on. Sorry, you did have me at the poem though. Just to reiterate, it was very beautiful. Something I asked a couple of years ago about this was about the assessment for the children within the virtual school. The assessment centres weren't as accessible in Northumberland as they were. That a lot of students were having to go into Newcastle to be assessed. Is that still the case or not?
So
So that's EHE assessment, GCSE assessment. Sorry, can I just check, Councillor Thurles-Aitken, because I think you might be talking about our home educated pupils and then taking their GCSE assessments? Yes, I thought that's what. So that's a different cohort of learners. So actually, but just to answer that question, so when our electively home educated cohort went to register, they need to find a centre who will take their registration, and that's at the discretion of any registered centre. So schools may choose to allow or not to allow it, that's at their discretion. So I don't in my head hold a list of schools that do support EHE in Northumberland, but there are a number of centres around the county, and some do still go to Newcastle. There are some core centres in Newcastle who will allow significant registration.
Chair, can I just come in? Just to say as well, in terms of elective home education, we have strengthened the pathway through our front door in terms of being able to gather information and any worries that we might have over children who are electively home educated as well. So we've done that last year through the virtual school in their work.
Councillor Spridell, isn't it?
Looking at the cared for pupils, it seems we have 42% of children attending schools out of the county. Is that because those children are placed with families outside of Northumberland? And my second question was, why is it we've only got 41% with an EHCP?
So in terms of your first question, in terms of children who are educated outside of the county, yes, that will be where they're placed, and that will be for a variety of reasons. They might be with family members, they may well be in foster care, care just outside of the county, or they may be in residential care as well. And it's one of our key priorities, particularly when we talk about the incorporate parenting group, that actually we're absolutely focused on keeping children as close as possible to their communities and to their families and within Northumberland County Council when it is safe to do so as well. So yes, that is because they'll be placed outside of the area.
And in terms of EHCPs, it's whether the child requires an EHCP. If they're cared for children, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will also have an education healthcare plan. It will be about their individual needs as to whether they are cared for and have an EHCP. So that 41% will vary according to need and time.
Okay. Yes, I did notice that 66% of cared for pupils had SEND attributes, so I thought there might have been a closer match of the two measurements.
So if I just go back to our SEND deep dive before Christmas, so our broadest SEND population is 10,000 in Northumberland, of which around 4,300 have an EHCP. So the SEND support is the greater proportion. So there will be many pupils who don't have formal EHCP, Education Healthcare Plan, apologies for using the acronym, who won't have that formal plan but do have access to support to meet their particular needs.
Okay, thanks.
So just if I can just pick up on a couple of things. In terms of some of the challenges for the service, what do you think those challenges are over the next couple of years? And in the same way, ask Mick what the ambition is for the future. What's the ambition for the service going forward?
I think some of the challenges are the number of children that are in care and understanding their needs and ensuring that they're in the correct provision. And I think sort of priorities for us are to accelerate the progress of cared for children, the retention in education, employment and training at post-16, and their outcomes and their education journey while they are school age, and the relational approach across Northumberland. That it's a multi-agency approach that we're all part of, and it's supporting schools to develop that culture and in schools to support their attendance, fewer suspensions and improve academic progress.
Just one other thing if I can, because in the report it does reference a reduction in the number of exclusions. So I'm guessing there's a whole piece of work which sits around that. Is the kind of, what you understand is the current data on that, is that still going in a positive way, or is there still more work to be done on those exclusions?
It's going in a positive direction, but we are still continuing to do the work around the suspensions, yes.
So, not seeing any other questions. So again, just Tora, welcome to your new role. We'll look forward to seeing you more at Scrutiny. So I think we've been asked to look at the report, to note the report, and identify some issues, which I think we've successfully done. So thank you very much, Tora, for presenting that this morning. Just moving on to item number 6 in your agenda pack. It's a report on sprinklers in schools, which I'm sure we've all read in detail. Sue Aberston is just going to cover off some of the key points on that, and then we'll move progress on the rest of the meeting. So Sue, over to you.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Yes, just to say, obviously this report comes to committee today as a request of the committee itself, so it isn't a regular thing that we would actually report on. It was obviously got a special interest, I think, with a previous member of the committee. But again, the report itself does advise members on the progress that we've had to install sprinkler systems in schools across Northumberland since 2007. And actually some of the challenges that we've had more recently with the Department of Education and their new build school programme, and them not actually installing sprinkler systems within their remit. So again, the report sets all of that context out, that Northumberland again does buck the trend, a little bit like Mick was saying, that, you know, in Northumberland 92% of all of our new build schools have had sprinkler systems installed in them, and it would be 100% if we hadn't got 2 DFE schools currently being built that actually haven't actually had them installed. We've had challenges in trying to enforce that through the planning process in Northumberland, and what we're recommending within the report is that we work together from an education team point of view with fire and rescue, with planning colleagues and with building control to develop a policy within our new local plan to ensure that we can mandate sprinklers in all new school buildings actually moving forward. So while this issue was reported as a highlight from an individual member of the committee, it feels that it's actually going to have a positive impact on policy if obviously we agree that that is the way that we would take this forward. But hopefully you've got some interesting facts, and it was interesting for me to pull all the information together of something that I wouldn't necessarily have done in the past, so I think that has been helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Because I have. So Georgina, I'll bring you in and then I'm going to come in myself.
Thank you. So it's really an interesting area, and looking into the background of it, the case does seem overwhelming to introduce them. I know, you can always make things safe, but you can't always justify the cost. If we all had a personal bodyguard, we'd all be very safe, but nobody's, and with the reduction in insurance, and, I think the case is there to do it. So just to clarify couple of things you've just said. So the Department of Education, when you said we are working to have a policy on sprinklers or school, did they say, no, we're not doing it? Did they give an explanation? Did they say, we'll do it if you pay for it? So just to clarify what happened in the conversations there, and will Berwick Academy have a sprinkler system?
Your second question, your second question was what I thought your first question
No,
was
it's
going
just
to be.
Georgina to get the word Berwick into every question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll come to your second question. Yes, currently we have got sprinklers planned. They're in our output specification. Just to give you a bit of an update, when you've asked about Berwick, we've obviously been out to tender to find our preferred partner to build the school, so we're hopeful to make an announcement in the next week as to who that is. So a lot more detail will come out over the next 8 to 9 months in terms of the progress on Berwick. Okay, so in terms of our relationship with the DFE, we did, as you will see in the report, we did have a previous decision by what was the previous cabinet, I suppose, when it used to be management board, back in 2003, I think it was. And we got a mandate then around sprinklers to be put in all new school buildings. When new schools were built in for Prudder, for Alnwick and for Bedlington as part of the first phase of Priority Schools Building Programme, the DFE took that policy as, yes, Northumberland has got a policy, therefore we will provide them. Hence why we did get that amended. What they've done more recently, again with the applications for Ringway and for Cramlington Learning Village, is they've wanted to see something in planning policy, and they weren't prepared to take the evidence and our previous policy into consideration. So that is why they haven't installed them in those two buildings. Yes, I would have thought they would have put sprinklers in if we were prepared to pay for them, but again there's some controversy there really in terms of what reaches the priority in terms of the DFE for new build wouldn't necessarily be the priority for us in Northumberland. I think something we're going to talk about in a short while is Ringway is basically across the road from Mowbray. If we'd have had the opportunity to bid for a new school in Northumberland, it would have been a new build for Mowbray and not one for Ringway. So the priority for building seems to be use different criteria as to what we would do as a local authority, and therefore, and as you rightly say, £1 million potential, for a large secondary school. I'm thinking Seaton Valley High that we've just built was about 1.25 million to put sprinklers in as an additional cost. So it was a big ask in current economic climates anyway.
Just to triple check, I'm sure the answer is yes, but the only argument against sprinkler system is cost. There isn't anything else there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the DFE's position. And again, building schools up and down the country, and their programmes obviously much larger than ours. The implication for that would be quite massive.
Okay, so just from my perspective, because this was asked for by former member of this committee, Councillor Mark Swinburne, and Mark and I are on the same page on this one because we're both Cramlington councillors, and this particularly related to Cramlington Learning Village, which is our large secondary school in the town, which has received, thankfully, money from DFE for the rebuild, but doesn't include a sprinkler system. So I don't want anyone running off thinking, you know, there's lots of danger here. What this is there is an inconsistency between the very high quality standards that we have as a local authority in the vast majority of our schools, going back from 2006, I think it is, to actually have that sprinkler system in, and what the DFE have rocked up and told us is going to be delivered for Cramlington, which I think is quite shocking when you look at this report in terms of 5.12 in the report, which says the average cost of a school fire, and across 115 fires in the country, £27 million in losses. It's actually an invest to save putting a sprinkler system in. It's absolute common sense. So this is part of the rationale for it. We were extremely disappointed that the Department for Education in London decided not to take our good evidence base to actually install sprinkler systems into the new build at Cramlington Learning Village. However, what I would say is, if the committee are supportive of this, Sue has indicated that obviously, well, we have a policy here, DFE looked at it, but I would quite like to send a letter on behalf of this committee to the DFE saying they need to get their act together and actually align to the other countries in the UK, because Wales and Scotland have a defined presumption of sprinklers in schools. England doesn't, and I think this is something where we could learn from some of our other partners. So if people are supportive of that, I'm happy to draft something, get that off to the DFE, because this isn't just about student safety, this is about a cost-saving measure, because if there is, God forbid, ever a fire in a school, it can be dampened very quickly with a sprinkler system, and you know, it's pretty much common sense, really. So I know we won't be able to retrospectively fit sprinklers, but I think going forward, and certainly from what Sue said and the assurance about the build that we are doing in Berwick, we are putting gold standard facilities into our schools, which I think has been exemplary for the massive school build programme that we've had for many years in this county. So DFE can learn something from us. So if you're happy with that,
Still need new furniture in it as well, though.
we'll talk about the furniture later. But if you're happy, I am more than happy to get something off to the DFE, and I'll liaise with Guy Renner-Thompson as well, the cabinet member, on that one. So Sue, thank you very much for that report. It's been really informative. We now move on to the tail end of today's meeting, reports of the scrutiny officer. We have 75 to 84. Rebecca, anything you want to add to those, please?
Nothing in particular, Chair. They're both just to note, and I don't have any verbal updates at the moment.
Okay. There's only one item of urgent business which I have asked for, which is an update on Mowbray School. And Sue, could I ask you just to cover that off, please?
I think a number of members of this committee are actually local members to Mowbray anyway, so we'll have continued to have briefings over Christmas and into the new year. But for members that are not aware, we had to close Mowbray Primary School early, a couple of days early, because we've been monitoring the condition of the school building over the last 6 or 7 months when some cracking started to appear in the building. It's got to the point where we need to do further, more intrusive investigation, so that has led to us closing the building on a temporary basis to allow that work to be undertaken, and that has led to pupils being relocated on a temporary basis for the next few weeks while we look at doing further investigation, and then a potential of moving pupils to Foundry House to come together as a school completely. But I was at the car park yesterday morning about 8:15, watching the children all get on their buses ready to go to their new locations. So yeah, lots of excited children with all their packed lunches and keeping nice and warm. Parents seem happy. We haven't received any complaints about the arrangements, and everything went off without a hitch at all yesterday. So plans are in place in terms of additional survey work. I'm working very hard with contractors to do the work we need to at Foundry House, and again we'll continue to update elected members, the local elected members, as and when there's more detailed information. But it's really good, and it was lovely to see so many happy faces yesterday as well.
And Sue, if I can just add to that as well, because this obviously happened between the Christmas and the New Year. Staff came in, I know, above and beyond, but it's their job. And I just think it's important that we pass on our thanks to you and to Audrey and the rest of the staff who, stepped up during what has been a holiday period to actually make sure that things were put right so that the students could get to their respective schools safely. And sounds like with a bit of fun as well. Yeah. So thank you for that. On that note, what I'll just again remind everyone is, please, if there are any issues you'd like to get onto the scrutiny timetable, let me know. On that deep dive, which Audrey touched on earlier around SEND, if there are any other areas of deep dive you'd like to look at, all member, I think that would be really good, because there is a huge amount that this local authority does in terms of our young people and education and learning, which touches every one of our lives and is important to every single elected member. So again, please get in contact with either myself or Rebecca. And on that note, I wish you a good rest of the day, and thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next meeting.